So today, hello, we are with Radio Pulsar. I'm Leanne, and I'm with Corleone. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Very good.
Okay, good. And so I'm wondering, how did you become interested in music?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I try and think back to like when did I become interested or what are the artists that sort of got me into music, it's actually very difficult for me to remember back to a time when I wasn't interested in music.
Right.
Like I've been interested in music for as long as I can remember. Some of my earliest memories are of singing made-up songs in the backyard with my brother. My brother's a couple years younger than me. He's been playing drums since basically he was in the womb. And so I was singing little songs that we made up together while my brother played drums on basically whatever noisy thing that we could find in the backyard. I didn't ever realize people were listening until one day a kid that I had never met, like I heard a little voice from the other side of the fence, and this kid was requesting one of our usual songs. It's called Can't You See Me? At that point, like I kind of realized, like, number one, I was always going to be writing songs, and number two, it was really fun to perform them. And there was a sort of extra joy that came from knowing that other people were listening to them and having a reaction to them and having an experience because of them.
Oh,
So I think I became a little performer in that moment.
wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. So what led that to being a DJ?
Yeah, it's interesting because like when I was younger, I figured I would be in a rock band. You know, I took guitar lessons. My brother took drum lessons. We used to play really loud, crunchy songs out the window to kids in the driveway. When we were like a little bit older. So I figured I would be in a band. And so it was a surprise to me that I became a DJ. But in the very late 90s, like very early 2000s, in my hometown, which is Sacramento, I'm from Sacramento. Mm-hmm. Sacramento had a really surprisingly vibrant house music scene. Mm-hmm. And it was really visible. It was in the clubs. Mm-hmm. There were raves, like big massives. Mm-hmm. It was in the record stores. It was on the radio for a couple hours at night on the weekends. Like it was around. There was one spot in particular. It got shut down, but it was madness while it lasted. It was called Sac Late Nights, and it went till like 4 or 5 in the morning. Like it was exactly as the name implies. It was a den of debauchery and dancing, and really big names came through there. You know, Donald Glaude played there, like big names. Like at the time, you know, and even now, headliners would come through there to this dark little spot in Sacramento. I was there on those nights losing my mind to house music. Like I had been a rocker all my life. Like I didn't understand why anybody would listen to music that didn't have lyrics that you could sing along to. Like I had a boyfriend at the time who was into Daft Punk, and I was kind of like, when I was first listening to it, I was like, what do you sing along to? Like, I don't get this music. But the more I sort of became acquainted with it, the more I started to fall in love with it. And these nights at Sac Late Nights, listen to these house music DJs play, just like standing up on chairs, like everybody's just losing their shit, you know? That's what inspired me to become a house DJ. And I bought my turntables in 2001, like in that same Sac Late Nights era. These are the exact same decks that I bought in 2001. They are beasts.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So how has that transitioned into, well, we kind of know that this is now a live streaming situation that's going on now with the pandemic. And how is that affecting your DJing, and how do you see this kind of playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I would never have chosen live streaming as the medium for me getting music to the people. For me, like there's an energy exchange there it's essential, right? Like it's what fires me up. It's what keeps me working on this. So it wouldn't have been my first choice, but I gotta say I'm super grateful for live streaming at this point. Live streaming has definitely kept me sane throughout this whole shelter in place adventure. Right now I'm streaming twice a week, most weeks. And in between, doing these live streams, playing music and walking or running around Lake Merritt, which I live really close to, my spirits are actually staying pretty high. If I did not have those two things in my life right now, I don't think it would be going well from a sort of mental health and well-being perspective.
Right.
So the other piece that I'll say is like live streaming has given me a reason to get reacquainted with my record collection. Generally when I'm playing out, like I'm not playing my records, I'm playing in a digital format. I'm playing all new stuff. So this has given me an excuse to go back kind of like spelunking through my own collection. And in turn, I've been encouraging other kind of older school DJs who came up playing vinyl to do the same, and have been involved in some really cool all vinyl nights, and really just like seeing my peers like flex their collections and flex their skills has been super cool. Playing vinyl is a special kind of joy, I think, as a DJ. And it's rare, honestly, to get that opportunity these days in the clubs. So the live streaming environment has really kind of like carved a pathway to being able to do that again. So I love it for that reason.
Yeah. And so there's really a difference between obviously being a club DJ and being a live stream DJ. Yeah. What's been unique for you in that? I mean, you mentioned the vinyl and being able to kind of, crate dig a little bit more into some of your older gems. And I've witnessed that. It's been beautiful. So what else has been unique about this live streaming versus, club DJing? Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's for sure a different world. It's a related but very different world. First of all, just kind of on the same thread, like I get access to well-maintained turntables if I'm live streaming. Like clubs, they just over time have stopped maintaining their turntables. So like, even if I got to a stage where there were turntables, like it's a real gamble as far as what kind of condition they're going to be in and how trustworthy they're going to be. So I have decks that I can be really confident in if I'm live streaming. So that's awesome. I think that there's also a lot to be said for having the freedom to choose tracks that are really beautiful or thought-provoking or sophisticated in a way that might not necessarily hold the attention of a live dance floor, where you have to keep the crowd interested and moving. Also, if you're really lucky, some people might do an awesome striptease for you while you play. I'll leave the details alone there and let folks use their imagination, but try getting away with that in a regular night.
That's so true. Yes, what they don't see off screen, they don't know.
It's really great.
That's so great. Yeah. So, do you see yourself doing it post shelter in place, this live streaming and all that?
I feel pretty mixed about it. I will say, honestly, I'm keeping an open mind about it. Again, like being somebody who really feeds on energy, there is no substitute for the energy of a live crowd and a proper dance floor, right? Like that feedback loop, it cannot be duplicated in a live stream setting. That said, it's been really impressive to see the way that we, the sort of DJ community, have adapted to this new reality. It happened quickly. It's really caught on. People are really stepping up. I think it's creating some cool new connections. I'm not sure how many DJs would say live streaming is their first choice for playing music in that category.
So how do you keep engaged with your audience, and how do you keep that feedback loop going?
Yeah, honestly, that one is pretty tough for me. Playing vinyl in particular is super demanding, and it takes a lot of active concentration. Like I'm babysitting pretty much all of the mixes when I'm playing vinyl, and what that means is that I don't have a lot of spare time for banter in the chat rooms, which is unfortunate because it's one of the only ways to sort of have a conversation. You can't dance with people, you can't make eye contact in the same way, like there's a whole body language that you sort of miss. But I do make an effort to engage with people in the chats as much as I can, and definitely after my sets I'm there checking in and talking to folks. It's a little bit like, in a live venue, you get off the decks, you come down, you have your hugs and your high fives and your conversations and all of that, but like don't talk to me while I'm mixing. It's kind of
That's true. So I've noticed some visual art too that's been part of your live streams. Are you producing visual art for your streams, and you've kind of taken that into consideration as part of your look and part of your product?
Yeah. I've seen some cool stuff on people's video feeds. There's some really super creative stuff that's happening there. I think for myself, I'll make some basic images in Photoshop. I want my stream to be branded. I want it to be tasteful. But honestly, I'm not focused on creating a visual experience outside of me shredding it on the decks. And that maybe sounds a little bit arrogant to be I am the show, bitches, but there's a lot going on there when I'm playing vinyl, like relative to when I'm playing a digital set. And the internet is overflowing with visual content. If someone wants to pair my show with cartoons or fucking jellyfish or like whatever it is, like by all means, go for it. You know what I mean? But I'm not putting a lot of thought or effort into like making a TV show for people from a visual perspective.
Yeah, right.
I'm about bringing the tunes. Like that's what I consider to be my job. I want it to not look like shit. But ultimately I'm focused on the audio part, and the visual part, like I want it to be decent. But it's very much a lower priority for me.
Right. Did it take long for you to get set up for everything?
Yes and no. Like I got set up initially, I think within like a couple of days. That said, like that setup was not the final setup. There were problems. I didn't set it up quite correctly. I mean, I can get into details about all the fails if you want, but I'm sure all of us doing this live streaming have plenty of stories around what didn't work at first. I will say, though, that I think that I had a little bit of an advantage and was able to get set up relatively quick because my old Burning Man camp ran an internet radio show for like 10 years. So just having experience with like internet radio broadcasting was helpful. And also like really want to give a shout out to some of the resources that were put together by fellow DJs in our community. There's a great write-up basically from beginning to end, how to get all your gear set up and how to get set up with OBS, with Twitch, like with everything that you need to be able to stream successfully. So, Kevnol and Monk both put in a lot of work to this resource for the community to use. So as people are starting to ramp up, they don't necessarily need a mentor. I mean, they just be pointed to this great resource. And that was super helpful for me to kind of like fill in the blanks too. There were certain points where I got stuck and I went and looked at that document. I said, oh, okay, great. This is how I sort of clear that hurdle and then could move on.
Yeah, right. That's a way of keeping it going. So where do you see it going from here? Do you see, what would excite you about this platform?
Yeah. It's hard to know where this is going to go. I think like the longer shelter in place goes on, the more and more creativity and innovation we're going to see in this space. And I gotta say, like, while there are some certain things that I don't totally love about Twitch, I really have to give them a lot of credit for creating an all-in-one solution that's, real-time audio and video streaming. It's free to use for the streamer. It's free to use for the listener. It's relatively stable, like considering how hard we're all taxing this system all at once, like it's actually holding up pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see how the creativity continues to flourish there. Personally, I'm looking forward to streaming actual live shows again, but where I see this kind of fitting in is offering a way for local performances to potentially enjoy a more global reach. So it's sort of both and solution where we're playing live from the club, from the warehouse, from whatever the venue is, and also simultaneously streaming it out to the world so that people who aren't necessarily in the place can still participate in the experience. Like that's where I think the goal is for this on a longer term, on a longer scale.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so great. Thank you for speaking with us today. And I look forward to hearing more of your music.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for including me. Happy to participate. This is cool. And looking forward to seeing more from Radio Pulsar.